Okay, so my name is David Murphy. My company does executive function coaching. And you're probably like, this lecture is about what executive functions are. Brett reached out to me because we met before the pandemic. We haven't talked since. He reached out to me a month or so ago. We reconnected. It was pretty cool. I got some ideas. And we thought we'd come in and share with you all what executive functions are. Now, typically we work with people, kids all the way through adults with ADHD and executive function challenges. The biggest difference may be between that group that we work with and this audience might be one fundamental difference. You had the skills. Okay? Your executive function skills may have been already online. We work with children on building the skills. Okay? So the relevance here is we're talking about the same processes. It's just as I get older. You guys know this, but as we age, our cognitive faculties go down. How do you know this? Well, could you imagine running a house with 4 children today? No. I think that time period, biologically, was a time period when you were at your fullest capacity to manage stress and get shit done. As we get older, the cognitive capacity to get shit done and manage stress typically goes down. It doesn't go up. That's just general rule of thumb. We know that. We might pretend it's not true, but it is true. Okay? So the work we do with clients is very similar to what this presentation is about. You're obviously coming at it from a very different frame of reference, and that's okay. We're going to teach you what executive functions are. You're going to take a questionnaire. This questionnaire is going to give you a self-assessment into your strengths and weaknesses. Okay? What used to be a strength may now be a weakness. That's okay. Self-awareness is empowering. It allows us to calibrate and recalibrate who we are and what we need to do differently in terms of strategies, processes, and management. Okay? I can talk really fast. I don't want to. I want to be nice and slow and deliberate. This is Karen, by the way. Karen's a partner in crime. She's got a personal connection to this audience and the work we do. She's also executive function coach, working with families and stuff. And supporting all levels of need. So she'll chime in from here to there to help me out and answer questions and be a support here. Okay. If you have a question, ask it. Okay? Our job is for you to leave here feeling like this was a helpful time. Okay? You may leave wishing you got more. That's because we have a short time together, and these trainings could be up to 4 hours long. Okay? I might come back. Depends if Brett invites me, or if you guys invite me. If I come back, it will be the next level of this training, which might be deeper strategies on how to use executive functions effectively at this phase of my life. Right? Raise your hand if your goal is to live a full life. Cool. Mine too. All right, I got a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. Their goal is the same. The skills we have access to might be different. That's okay. We have to recalibrate that, and figure out what we do with it. Some of you have already jumped into this questionnaire because you have advanced cognitive abilities. But this questionnaire is, sorry, I'm supposed to.
No,
where's my spawn? Ann? No, I want to know how much time we have together. Raise your hand if you think it's a half hour. Raise your hand if you think it's an hour.
He said half an hour, but And all my lectures are usually an hour.
I'm here till you finish.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, usually when we have a meeting at 1, it goes till 2.
Okay, well, last time we had a half hour, so I had to skip some slides.
Right.
That was my,
Because
that,
there was a class after that.
yeah, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. What, yeah, maybe turn the lights off a second. What I want you to do, the most important part from this slide is understanding that there's overlap with Parkinson's disease, ADHD, and executive dysfunction. What we primarily work with is kids and adults with ADHD. The similarity between the Parkinson's and ADHD has to do with the dopamine dysregulation. Okay? Now, this is not a lecture on Parkinson's. I feel like other people are probably in here doing all that. This is a lecture on executive functions. I'm just trying to connect the dots to the audience here to understand how this relates to what we do as an organization and what this might mean to you as a participant, but also someone that may have specific goals in your mind. But when it comes to strategies, the clinical studies suggest that there's the behavioral strategies as part of the interventions, similar to what you're doing in here. We also help people incorporate their own personalized behavioral strategies to improve skills, improve independence, improve quality of life, and get shit done. It's a big theme with our world of ADHD. I get stuck, right? I procrastinate, and I lack the skills to get shit done. So that's who we are, that's what we do, this is the connection. And Brett reached out to me to kind of see if this was something. I was like, absolutely, this is awesome. Do you want to, Karen, you want to chime in? We want to the next slide?
Sure. So with Parkinson's, we've noticed that you have your medications that you need to take, right, to keep the dopamine where it needs to be and not have the deficit. And the cognitive rehabilitation can be something that we're working on, specific cognitive abilities that everyday functioning that may be something that was strong before is not as strong now. And so we'll help coach you with techniques and tools that help to make things easier. And then sometimes we'll notice that there are targeted behavioral strategies that we need to address with things that are the executive functions. I also wanted to mention that my brother has Parkinson's disease, and he is going to be 58 next month, and he's had it for about 12 to 15 years. So I'm trying to get him in here. He lives here in Massachusetts, and I've recently moved to Massachusetts in the last 3.5 years. So I can understand, how the disease does affect individuals, and I can understand how the coaching helps to benefit and strengthen the life that we have here and now and moving forward.
Okay, so there is a relation, executive functions, just so a general operating definition. Raise your hand if you already know what executive functions are. A couple people had a speech and language pathologist in the last meeting. She raised her hand twice. So executive functions are cognitive processes. They primarily exist in the frontal lobe for higher order thinking skills. But think of it this way. If you are trying to get something done, let's call that a goal. My goal is to brush my teeth. You use executive functions to do just that. If my goal is to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I'm using executive functions. Grocery store, executive functions. Set up my medication for the week, executive functions. So we use executive functions to manage our life based on what we care about. What people don't talk enough about is the interplay between self-regulation, which might be mood, anxiety, stress, the feel, and how that relates to my access to executive functions. So this GIF shows this. If you follow the arrow as it comes down, it goes through the red, self-regulation, and then it goes, the attention is my thought process around, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to get done, and then I'm implementing executive function skills. I think this GIF is important because it shows the complexity in our thinking and how as we get older, this process is still there. It's just we have to decide on adding strategies in order to make it effective as we think about the things we care about. Like I used to be able to go to the grocery store, and I go to the grocery store with 10 things in my mind, no list needed. And now I go to the grocery store, crap, I'm lucky if I leave there with one thing. So that's an example of working memory deficit, and maybe walking into a grocery store feeling overwhelmed or stressed about the massive amount of information coming at me, and not having the same level of skills or cognitive processes I used to have to get through the grocery store with a mental list. Common executive dysfunctions in Parkinson's disease, and this is not just Parkinson's disease, but I mean, there's some generalizations here that play out in many people, not just this disease. So planning challenges, organizational issues, working memory challenges, decision making. You ever get paralyzed and not sure what decision to make? Yeah, that's the opposite. The decision making, or the paralysis of indecision, or inhibition problems. Right, these are just kind of themes. We'll talk more about this. I talked about self-regulation. It's a big deal. You can't underestimate how my ability to handle stress today has changed. I used to be able to handle, the stress of my children coming home at night, the work demands of a 60-hour work week, and and my pickleball league that I played with on 3 nights a week. Like, you have to recalibrate how you handle stress to be able to still live a full life at whatever milestone you're at. And that could be from my 10-year-old to an 20-year-old to a 75-year-old. Okay? Who here practices some form of mindfulness? Cool, we got it. Okay, cool. Not something we were all taught as children, but one of the most effective ways to regulate your stress and regulate your responses is to develop self-awareness strategies. Okay? I'll show you how. You ready to go try this out? Okay. Close your eyes. Okay? When I say when, you're going to take a deep breath in. Ready? Okay. Breathe in. 1. Hold it. And just breathe out slowly. Okay, open your eyes. It is a very basic exercise, and it's one of the most profound exercises to recenter yourself and reclaim my self-awareness and and manage the moment. It's really important. Really important. We teach little kids how to do this so they can do it for the rest of their life. Right? When you're in your, when you get past your 40s and 50s and you've never been taught this stuff, it almost feels like I'm old dog, new tricks. But it doesn't undervalue the importance as I think about my goals and the full life I'm trying to live. We're about to transition into something. Questions before we do? All right, we're going to get into this questionnaire. Raise your hand if you already know your executive function strengths and weaknesses. All right, cool. This will be a fun exercise. So we thought the most important thing about this training is walking out with something that you can use. Well, this exercise, I'm going to start with a bright light here. What you're going to do is we're going to take you through each question, and you're going to, as an outcome to this, you're going to understand your strengths and you're going to understand your weaknesses. But you'll also, raise your hand if you're a care partner. Cool. Raise your hand, okay. And raise your hand if you're a patient. All right, cool. So on this self-assessment, there's actually a category for you and your partner. The you is under self, so we're going to take you through the example. And what I want you to do is just do yourself right now. Okay? Follow me on the board just so you can kind of walk through. Some of you are going to get this right away and you're going to move along. Some of you are going to kind of stay with us the whole time. The first executive function we're going to look at is called response inhibition. It's a weird way of saying it's my ability to stop. and not react. Okay? These are the the first question is, do you carefully deliberate before making a decision? Is that you? Or are you someone who jumps to conclusions? Think about today. Don't think about like 10 years ago. Think about today. Are you someone that carefully deliberates before making a decision? Yes or no? Are you someone that jumps to conclusion? Yes or no? Once you pick a side, come over here, and here you have yourself and your partner. I would say focus on yourself as we go through this, unless we're going too slow and you want to also do it for your partner.
Or they could save it and have the partner do it at home.
Yeah, or you can save it and go through this with your partner later on. Second question, you think before responding, doesn't interrupt. Is that you? Are you someone who likes to think before you respond? Or are you someone who likes to blurt out?
What if it's both?
Yes, that's the hard part. So my answer to that is go with your gut on it to say like that. My tendency is usually ... In general, that's the hard part about these types of questions. Is if it is situational, it's harder. But in general, where do you fall?
David and Diana.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is if you see the left side over here, these are more of executive function strengths. And on the other side, those are more of deficits. So if you think you may benefit from some tools or some ideas and strategies to strengthen the skill, you're going to see this submarked. These are your deficits. These are more of your strengths. If that makes sense. And it's okay to have deficits. We all do. And they'll change over time as well. And so sometimes you may have been strong in something and had a strength, and then it's now changing to a deficit, which is why we come in and we work with you and coach you and help you to come up with some strategies, or your care partner, to kind of fill the gaps.
Okay? How are we doing? Pacing, we're pacing. Okay, working memory is the next one. Some of you moved ahead because this makes sense to you. Some of you are just pacing with me because you really like the pacing. But we're going to do the working memory one. Are you someone that has a head for details? You like memory like an elephant. Like, you can go to the grocery store with 20 items in your mind, in and out. All those items are checked off. Or are you someone like me that has difficulty remembering those details, and I'm walking through the grocery store with my text message from my wife with every item clearly on the text thread of what I need to get before I walk out, and I still walk out with something missing? Which one are you? Do you remember what has to be done? Or do you have kind of a tendency of forgetfulness? Follows through on obligations without remembering? Or someone like me that if it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. I'm not showing up. Forget it. In our coaching work, we spend a tremendous amount of time working with people on working memory strategies.
So if you make lists all the time and you look at your calendar all the time, are you supposed to try to work away from that?
No.
No? Okay. You're supposed to just use that compensation.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're using a checklist all the time and you have a calendar all the time, should you go away from that?
Try to build your strength.
To me, I feel like that's almost like if you're left-handed trying to make yourself right-handed. Why bother, right? I'd say, we grow to know who we are, and we grow to know what our strengths and weaknesses are. However, when those change, when those strengths and weaknesses change, which they do, how do we recalibrate? How do we shift and start to work more effectively with our weaknesses and our strengths to still live the full life we're trying to live, right? And that's the goal. I talk about my coffee. I love coffee. It takes 17 steps for me to make my cup of coffee. And I make the most complicated type of coffee. It's French press coffee. I grind my own beans. They're from Guatemala. They're delicious. And I have to grind them with a timer that's like so much. And then I pour 2 heaping scoops. It's down to a science. 17 steps. And then I sit there mindfully sipping my coffee, sad when the moment's over. And then there's the 3 steps on making Keurig coffee. Right? Pod, put it in there, push it down, hit start. Was that 3 steps?
Oh, you still get finish.
Yes, okay, 5 steps. What's my point? My point is that's my way of making coffee today. But does that have to be my way of making coffee if my skills change? And I have to recalibrate I love coffee. Does that mean I have to go with a 7-step version of coffee? No. No, I just recalibrate how I'm getting the end result. Grocery shopping can be super stressful for a lot of people. How am I using strategies like Instacart and automated delivery to still get the wonderful meals in my fridge, which is my goal, without having to go through all of that overwhelm on my own? Okay? How are we doing with this one? Can I go on? Yeah. Task initiation. Who wants to guess? For 10 points, what is the opposite of task initiation? If you're a teacher, you can't answer. Ah, yes, the opposite of task, the symptom of task initiation is procrastination. Okay? Raise your hand if you know somebody close to you that is a chronic procrastinator. Okay, that might mean that that person is going to fall on this side. Okay, so you might as well just kind of X this side or write a smiley face. It only matters if it matters. If you procrastinate on eating breakfast, that might not be as big of a deal on procrastinating on taking your medication. So you have to factor in, what am I procrastinating about, and how do I build skills to initiate in the areas that matter? All right, skipping your workouts because you're procrastinating on showing up. That might be an issue. Sustained attention, another type of executive function. We are 25 minutes into this presentation. Some of your sustained attention might be diminished. I know I can probably only last a half hour of listening to me talk too. But sustained attention might be important. Do you forget what you're doing in the middle of doing it? So we work with kids that would fill this out, and every category is a weakness. And they're 15 years old. And their goal with us is to build these skills so they can achieve the life of a college student. Again, it's about what does a full life look like to me today, and what skills do I have, or do I need to build, or strategies I need to build to maintain or grow. Planning and prioritizing, another executive function category. Demands on my planning might be less than it had been when I was juggling all of these other things in my early 30s, late 30s, early 40s, but it's still I still have goals in my mind. I still have things I want to plan for, and I still have priorities that I want to be able to effectively juggle. How am I doing? How's my partner doing? Maybe a partner has the same strengths you do, which is why there's some problems. Because your weaknesses, you both have the same weaknesses. So you're not able to support each other. Oh, or all of my weaknesses are my partner's strengths. That's not a big deal, but we may want to build some understanding, some sense of appreciation, some sense of compassion to realize, wow, my partner's handling a lot because I'm struggling. And what does that mean in terms of self-awareness and support? And by the way, if you were a couple in our coaching, you might have ADHD, you might be married, and your partner has ADHD and you don't, and you may have the same conversation as a result of this type of self-assessment. Organization. Organization is one of the few categories that you can observe. Think of your kitchen. Is it organized or is it disorganized? Think of your sink, right? Think of the bathroom. So you can think about organization as observable pretty much, but it starts with cognitive processes around how do I maintain organizational systems? Does my toothbrush go in the same place? Do I empty the dishwasher most mornings when I get up? Do I start the dishwasher before I go to bed? I know I hear from my wife if I don't. The next morning when she gets up and realizes the dishwasher was never started. I have my job. If I fail at my job, I'm accountable. Time management. Time management. It's a big deal. Do I show up on time? Am I always 15 minutes late? Do I have no idea about the passage of time anymore? Again, in our line of work, we've met a lot of people that have time blindness. You know what time blindness is? It's not having any understanding of the passage of time. Hours could go by, and in that person's world, it's been minutes. That's a pretty debilitating condition. And that takes a lot of training to interact with time.
Well, when you say this, it's on the right, what we should be doing to
On the right might be deficits. On the left might be your deficits, and on the left would be your strengths. So if you check this box, like that one,
Yeah.
and that one,
Describe that.
then you may not be able to strive for it. But what we'd say is you might want to work on strategies.
You may not want to.
Right, but you are. You're striving to get better. Or you just learn strategies to make it not a big deal. Okay? Great question. Okay, it's about self-awareness. If I now know what I now know, what am I going to do with that information? Throw it in the trash?
Acknowledging it is key. Acknowledging it is
Yep,
key.
it's empowering to now know.
Right.
Flexibility. Raise your hand if you can touch your toes. Just kidding. It's not that type of flexibility. This is cognitive flexibility. For 10 points, what is the opposite of cognitive flexibility?
Rigidity.
Yes. Well done. 10 points. Rigid thinking is a narrow way of seeing things and therefore not being flexible in seeing other options. It's the old dog, new tricks maybe kind of analogy. Sometimes I get stuck in a way of doing things that is inflexible and therefore hard for me to change. Part of this process is to build self-awareness and empowerment to then make changes. And flexibility is a big deal in our work. We have a lot of very bright, very driven students and young adults that get rigid in their thinking and therefore get stuck. Flexible thinking is a way of seeing Can I go with the flow? Or do I get stuck because I had something in my mind I had to get done? And I got stuck in that idea. I got stuck in those steps. And I couldn't get out of it and it ruined my whole day. Right? We've all been there. It's just, is it a big deal? Yes or no? Okay, for another 10 points. What is metacognition?
Reading other people?
Reading?
Reading other people?
Oh, good guess. I'll give you 5 points for taking the risk. Appreciate that. Not reading other people.
Understanding how you learn.
Ooh, yes. Very close. Yes. Yes. It's, in a way, thinking about your own thinking. So understanding how I learn is my reflection on my learning process. Right? Oh, I didn't get that. I'm going to go see the teacher for extra help. That would be a metacognitive process. Oh, I was totally problem solving the day-to-day movement of my life. Oh, I totally missed getting to the grocery store today. What am I going to do about that? Oh, I'll just forget about it. I'll just eat peanut butter and jelly. Or I have to problem solve that by thinking about how do I better plan my schedule so that I'm not forgetting the grocery store on my way home from my doctor's appointments. Okay, so metacognition is a really big deal. I'm always thinking about who I'm trying to be. And then I'm thinking about what's getting in the way of me being that person. Oh, wait a minute, I knew I came downstairs for something. Crap. What was it? I just had it this morning. I was going inside to get something to bring back out to the car because I needed the adapter for this thing. But I walk inside my kitchen and I'm like, you know, my dog's there, my wife's there, my kid's trying to get out of the house. And I'm like, and they see me like this. So I'm thinking about my own thinking, being like, just a minute ago I had a thought that I needed to come in and take care of. What the hell was it? Right? We've all been there. It's just with age, right, our capacity to manage information, to think about thinking, isn't as strong as it used to be. When stress hits it, when anxiety hits it, when overwhelm hits it, it's harder to process. Right? You have a great example about your brother.
The stress.
Yes.
So,
That's cool. So we have to develop strategies on how we manage the stress so we can keep thinking about ourselves in deliberate ways.
right. So, like I said, my brother's a businessman. You know, it's always been more of a type A personality, go, 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 you know, and he's had to reflect and understand that he wants to put all stress aside. He can't handle it. He shouldn't have to handle it. I mean, we all have a little bit of stress, but when it comes at him, say I call him and I want to talk about my daughter and I'm venting, and he's like, Karen, I can't listen to this. You know, and he knows when to separate himself from it. He knows when he needs to do some mindfulness, some breathing. And then he also reflects on his days, on what worked well, what didn't work well, what might I try differently. And those are things that we work on as coaching. We prompt those questions, those conversations, and then we give ideas as to strategies that might help you.
Thank you for your personal stories. Okay, I love this one. So you all raised your hand when I said, do you still want to live a full life? Yeah, no one didn't raise their hand. Goal-directed perseverance is a really big deal on every phase of our life. What are my goals? You all are here working out. That means you have goals. Right? You're getting out of your house and you're actually engaging in the life around you. Goal-directed persistence is this notion that I'm able to move myself deliberately and conscientiously towards my goals and think about the actions related to those. It can be as simple as that cup of coffee. My goal is to start my day with exercise and a nice cup of coffee, and I work towards that. How are you doing? Okay, stress tolerance. Kind of touched this with a couple of good examples already. How is your stress tolerance? Is your ability to handle stress the same as it's always been? Or do you feel like the way you handle stress is it's harder for you the emotional aspect of the stress seems to weigh on you more and is harder to deal with. That is an executive function process. And the first thing you want to do is be aware of it. I'm aware of my stress tolerance levels. I understand when I'm being triggered. And if I'm like Karen's brother, I have a strategy that you're like totally triggering me, sis. You gotta back off. I gotta chill. Like, this is too much. Hard to do though. I bet you he wants to listen to his sister.
Well, sometimes too, he'll separate himself. He'll go to the beach. He'll go for a drive. You know, he'll do those mindfulness things that are just gonna automatically watch.
Okay, cool. So, raise your hand if you did this for you and a partner. Someone in mind. You did it for 2 people. All right, cool. Raise your hand if you think you may do the second part with your partner. All right, cool. Raise your hand. Here's the benefit. Just so you kind of think about the goal of that. Goal-directed perseverance would be like following through on this exercise. The benefits would be the conversations that come from looking over the results. What are your strengths? What are my strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are my weaknesses? And what might that mean in terms of our relationship? Holy shit, I seem to be doing all of these things. Yeah, and I totally appreciate you for that. And I gotta say over and over again how grateful I am. Just the understanding and the compassion that can come from that self-awareness, maybe the most important part. But the other outcome is, what can I do in terms of building my skills or keeping my skills online? What we do with people is saying, okay, you're going traveling a lot. You love to travel. You guys love to travel together. But I see that your spouse is doing all of the packing for you. I can pack myself. I just don't have this process to do it myself anymore. So my wife just jumps in and does it all for me. Well, is that necessary? How do I keep skills activated, executive functions online, to be the best version of myself as to the whatever extent I can do? And we'll do this with kids as well. A lot of our students need academic support. A lot of our students need strategies in the classroom. And they rely on other people too much. But they have to build skills to become the best version of themselves. So as we think about what your life looks like, how can this conversation lead to just an empowering recognition around where are my strengths and weaknesses, but also building strategies to support other things. For example, medication management. What are the processes that allow me to manage that? And we could talk more about that. That's like the next level of this training. Question?
Great presentation. I have to leave in a minute, but I wanted to skip ahead and ask you for any specific examples about cognitive exercises. Because I do a lot of things. I do puzzles, games, I read, I engage, but is there anything that is specifically in your menu that you'd like to recommend?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So, you want to take that one?
Oh, I was going to turn the light off
Yeah.
so we can read it.
Okay. So there are, as you probably know, you have the Sudokus, you have the puzzles that are out there that we can do on a daily basis.
Right.
And how even these types of trainings have cognitive exercises. So those types of strategies help really support working memory, which is one of the executive functions you heard me talk about. And I think keeping our brains engaged in challenging exercises allows those faculties to stay strong. And so absolutely, I would say whatever you're doing, so who has games they like to play on a daily basis? So Sudoku, crossword puzzle, what's the one you can pick 5 in a row? Wordle, like there's certain,
Right.
like some people, who's the New York Times people who wrote that? Like
Yeah,
to
New
do-
York Times.
Right, yeah. So all of those, if you're doing those on a daily basis, can offer in strengthening cognitive faculties.
And I
memory,
assume,
recall.
I don't want to interrupt, but I assume, I play piano, so I keep doing that.
Oh, yeah.
But I assume learning another language if you can, or
Yeah.
trying new hobbies or something like that would be
Yeah, in general, I'd say this even to a 40-year-old is you should, if you're always learning something new, then you're building neural pathways,
Ah,
right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's a neurological statement. If I want to build neurological pathways, I practice certain things that are different to allow my muscle, my brain to actually form new pathways and do it, which is why you're doing what you're doing here in the gym. Like it's strengthening those neural pathways. So playing the piano, if I would play piano, I think I would. By the way, my mom's in the room. I'm looking back at my mom, and she knows I've never been good at musical instruments. I'm so bad that they took me out in like second grade and said, "No, you don't have to ever touch musical instruments." and my anxiety went down for the first time. So yeah, doing something that you find like compelling or interesting. I think boxing is awesome. I feel like for my growth, I've never boxed in my life. But how beneficial would it be to my development
yeah.
if I just said, no, I'm going to do 6 months. Swimming's awesome. If you've never swam before, and you're like, yeah, what could that do for my cognitive development and muscular development? I think there's so many wins. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't even part of this presentation to talk about that, so I appreciate you bringing it up. What we talk about, most of the stuff, is the real world implications on the cognitive decline, how you have challenges managing meals, managing medication adherence, social interactions. You find yourself maybe, for a lot of adults, you find yourself more isolated because it's just more comfortable that way. And so I want to pause here because I want to be able to answer questions. No, that's okay.